I was born in an ordinary northern village, and I remember how I dreamed of leaving here for the big city. I had so much zeal and passion. It seemed like real life was happening somewhere out there. That's probably true when you're 20. But over time, it becomes clear that this is not life at all. I was 38 when suddenly I looked at myself from the outside. No family, no home, no prospects. Just a city, big, concrete, and lifeless. I decided to go to my native places to feel a long-forgotten sense of peace and harmony. To my surprise, almost nothing has changed here over the years. The forest was surrounded by a wall, and the scent of pine needles was as fresh as it had been in childhood. The river, however, crushed a little, and only rotting piles remained from the old wooden bridge. But everything was so cozy, so close to my soul, that I never returned to the city. He moved into his parents' empty house and began to settle in his old place. A lot needed fixing. Something needed to be updated, electricity restored. But that didn't scare me. I finally felt like I belonged. I felt at home. The next day, on my way to the local store, Igor, a school friend, approached me. Wow, what people. Vanek, where have you been? Great. He shook my hand and there was genuine joy in his eyes. You know, here and there, I replied awkwardly. I haven't seen you since the day of my mother's funeral. When was that? About 5 years ago? Somewhere like that. I said indifferently. Mom was old. I was ready to lose her. Therefore, I quickly came to terms with death. After all, none of us can live forever. But I got her old house, and I remembered the wiring problems. Then, asked my friend, Igor, listen, Uncle Misha, an electrician, lived here somewhere. Don't you have his phone? My friend gave me a surprised look. So that's it? You can't get through to the other world? Mikhalich died. The cow was trampled. He said ironically, What? A cow? Well, yes. He was drunk. He and the cow didn't share something there. I stepped on my ribs in general. Igor answered, in business. I whistled. Would you help me find an electrician? Do you remember his son? Lek Zhilov. He's doing everything here in the village right now. Did you follow in your father's footsteps? Let's hope not for everyone. Igor laughed. You're the same as always. Igor gave me the electrician's number, and we said goodbye. On the same day, I called Lech, and he fixed my wiring. I just took off the meter, wrapped the electrical tape in 2 places, and the lights came on in the rooms. I wanted to pay him, but he said he would take the liquid currency. That's how Zhilov and I became friends. Lech, like other residents, led an ordinary rural life. He kept chickens, geese, and 4 pigs, and his wife, Sonia, took care of the children and the garden. I liked the local way of life, simple and measured, but for a long time, I did not understand where my vocation lay in it. I even thought about going to work at a sawmill, but one day, while sorting through the trash in the barn, I came across my father's double-barreled shotgun. It was quite old, but it was still firing. As I unwound it from the rag, I could feel my heart racing in my chest. When I was a kid, Dad often took me hunting with him. I didn't understand much then, and I was even afraid to look at the game I'd shot. A lot has changed since then, including me. There were cartridges in the box, and I took a few and went into the woods. I wandered among the tall fir trees, hoping for a chance catch. In 3 hours, I only came across a hare, and even then, He only laughed at my attempts to hit him, so I returned home with nothing. My ears were ringing a little from the gunshots, but I was sure that this was just the beginning. Are people born with any skills? No, it's a lot of work and a lot of attempts. If something didn't work out the first time, it will work out the second, third, 10th. It's just a matter of time. And I was right. What can you not do when hunger forces you to spin? After 4 months, I already knew the places where more game lived. I bought a new gun and could have hit it from a long distance. I learned all the tricks and even got a license. I became a local hunter. He earned money from meat and was very proud of himself. My life in the village was gradually improving, which I couldn't say about the other residents. It all started when Baba Masha came up to me. This is the kindest old lady who looked after me as a child. And even now, on holidays, she treated me to pancakes. "Vanusha, wait a minute," the neighbor called and waddled quickly towards me. "What about Baba Mash? Had he seen Martha? Who is this?" I didn't understand. "Have you seen Martha? Who is it?" I didn't understand. "Have you seen my dote? She's so white, with intelligent eyes." "No, Grandma, I haven't seen it." "Did she run away?" "I don't know, Vanya. Maybe someone stole it?" Martha was my smart one. I used to forget to put it in the evening. The memory is already there, you know. So she went to the barn to spend the night. And then I remember exactly what I locked. I go out in the morning, the barn is open, Martha is not there. And where did the cube go? But that dog runs away every spring. But Martha, that's it, Grandma. I get it. I'll go after the game and look for your goat. Suddenly she went into the forest. "Oh, Vanish. Thank you, thank you." Then I didn't pay attention to her concern, but soon similar stories were already occurring every day. Some had a full yard of turkeys gone. Some had feathers left. Others had chickens ruffled. The second was dragged. The second was killed. In the house opposite, 2 cats disappeared at the same time, went out into the yard, and disappeared. Then many set traps. At first, they thought it was the foxes making night raids. But do foxes steal whole sheepdogs? It was only when a whole calf was stolen from the Athonians that the villagers became confused. Who or what could do such a thing? The sun disappeared behind the outlines of tall trees. It was getting colder. A single cloud hung in the sky. I walked across the field from hunting at a brisk pace, thinking about a warm house and a hearty dinner. We managed to shoot 3 birds with 1 stone all day today. At another time, this could have been called luck, but now, when many people are left without cattle and meat, there is more demand for game than I could offer. The atmosphere in the village was sad. Every second one has something wrong. Walking along the path, I glanced briefly to the left and turned away, but then I looked again. There was something there. Not a beast, but a man? Imagine something thin and long. It stood like an animal, arching its back and leaning on 2 limbs. The head is elongated, like a squash, long legs, and an equally long, single arm. So I stood and watched. Birds flew over the field, hurrying to the forest to spend the night. The wind was stirring the grass, and this creature, it was stuck in the middle of the field, motionless. I would understand what it is, but I can't see it in the dark, and it's scary to get closer, even though I have a gun. There are no such animals, and there are no such people either. This creature looked like a walking disaster, like a curse. If I'd had more courage, I would have shot the thing right then. But, alas, he did not dare. One day, Lech called me and offered to visit him. At my knock, a friend opened the door and warmth hit his face. I took off my clothes and dropped my backpack at the front door. "Hello, Vanyuk. Everything will be ready soon," Zhilov said, and pointed to the kitchen. There was a smell of food in the house, and meat was baking in the oven. Sonia was hovering by the refrigerator and greeted me somehow sadly. I sat against the wall, and Lech opened a bottle on the counter on the cones. "How are you doing here?" I asked, breaking the silence. "Things are shitty here," the friend replied, filling the glasses. "And did something happen to you?" My body tensed involuntarily. It happened. 30 geese, 10 chickens, and a piglet. Lech waved his glass and loudly put down the glass. Was it all stolen? I was blown away. All my work, all my money. I spent a whole year raising, feeding, cleaning shit, walking like a ragamuffin. And what is all this for? Zhilov almost burst into tears. I patted him on the back and then hugged him. "We'll figure it out, everything will be fine," I said, trying to support him. Sonia took the roast goose out of the oven and put it on the table. "Eat while there's still something left," she said, and went into the children's room. "Lech, we won't be lost, I promise," I started to say. "There is also less game in the forest. But it's okay, I have a gun." Zhilov interrupted me. "I need your gun. I'm a sucker for this thing, whoever it is." "Are you crazy? How am I going to give you a gun? And if you shoot at a person, they'll put me in jail." I was indignant and drank a glass on the counter. Lech took a goose leg and bit it off. "That thing killed half my cattle last night. I saw her myself. I heard a noise in the coop. The birds were screaming. I ran and was stunned." "You three-legged freak don't understand what this is all about. Eyes like human eyes, but not human at all." She saw me and ran off. Then I started cleaning up the slaughterhouse, and while I was poking around in the sheds, I heard the children screaming. He threw down his pitchfork and sacks and ran into the house. "What happened?" Goosebumps ran down my body from my legs to my back. Lech waved his hand. "Yes, everything worked out. This trash came with a bloody mouth covered in feathers and squinted out the window. The eldest daughter saw her and started screaming. Then Sonia and I came running, and she disappeared." "Do you know where she disappeared to?" "Where to?" I asked impatiently. "The pigsty. She distracted me so he could go inside and attacked a boar. She left only her hooves. I could hear the pigs squealing, but I couldn't leave the children. And after this nightmare, are you suggesting that I go into the woods and shoot game? No, there's only one thing I want to shoot, and I'll lay down my bones, but I'll rid the village of it. I'll avenge them all. For the children, for the neighbors, for the chickens, for the geese, and for Boris." Lech threw a bone on the table. "Which Boris?" I didn't understand. "For the boer." Lech took a sip on the counter and grimaced. "Do you understand?" I nodded. I thought it would be easy. The cottage cheese is large. If the hares are being hit, then they should not miss it either. Lech was sure that sooner or later the predatory creature would appear. There is still something left in his household to profit from. Of course, I was shaking with fear. After all, it's a monster of unknown nature. But I reassured myself that I had a gun. I thought I'd shoot the critters and become a local hero. The next night, Lech and I set up an ambush. He was sitting in his yard, and I was behind the fence on the side of the forest. I walked like this for at least 2 hours. The nights were still cold, but I got dressed too lightly and started to freeze. I just wanted to go to a friend's house to ask for tea when I suddenly saw a tripod-legged creature rushing silently across the field. It was running in leaps and bounds, and you couldn't hear its breathing. I immediately sent a voicemail to my friend. "Lek, I see a creature." I wanted him to be ready, but this creature did not go to his house, but to the one next door. And I didn't have time to take the gun off my shoulder, as it had already jumped over the fence. My heart was pounding like a drum. I was confused and didn't know what to do. I took the safety off my gun and was thinking, should I go or not? Suddenly there was a commotion in the house. Lights turned on. Noise. Screams. A woman screamed. And then the tripod-legged creature popped back out, and even out of the tabs in his teeth. A large bird was fluttering in his mouth. White feathers flew through the air. "That's it, you're finished," I said, taking aim. I knew exactly what I was going to get. The monster was rushing towards me. Shot. A lead-caliber bullet took down the monster on the run. I don't know where I hit, but the tripod rolled on the ground head over heels. Yes, of course. This shell would have killed a bear. The creature was lying on the ground and twitching. I'm emboldened. He got into a rage and ran up to her to finish her off with a control shot. He looked and froze. What is this? A bald creature with a long body. The ribs show through the skin. Legs with human-like feet. One hand. It's quite a human hand, with long fingers and nails. It was as if there should never have been a second hand. There wasn't even a shoulder joint. And the muzzle? What kind of face was that? The eyes are huge, dark, with an elongated nose and massive jaws, with large pointed teeth. Its mouth was so big that it could easily swallow a human head. Who did I shoot? The bullet hit the monster in the side. There was a black wound without a drop of blood. I knew it would be better to put a bullet in her head to make sure. But while I was thinking, Torina punched me in the face. The blow was so strong that it knocked me off my feet. My ears were ringing and my jaw ached. Lek and some other people came running. I could hear their voices, but I couldn't make out what they were saying to me. The creature ran away, despite having a hole in its side. She tore my ear, cracked my jaw, and dislocated my eyeball. I spent the next week in the city hospital. When I returned, I found out that a real turmoil had begun in the village. We realized that the creature was stealing animals because it was sparing us. But now that humans have started a war, the infernal beast has shown how ruthless it can be. One night, a teenager, a 14-year-old boy, disappeared, went out into the yard to give the dog the leftovers of dinner. The parents only heard a short squeal, and it became quiet. The father ran out into the yard and saw a tripod running away somewhere in the distance, dragging a thin figure along the ground. And so the boy disappeared. No one has seen him for several days. Then, another terrible tragedy happened. Do you remember when I told you about my school friend named Igor? So at night, the creature broke into his house. In the morning, terrible news thundered through the whole village. There is blood everywhere in Igor's house and broken windows. He and his wife are dead, murdered for no reason. Their necks were twisted and they were thrown into different rooms. And the worst part was that they had 2 small children. They're gone, and something told me that they would never be found again. The panic began. The whole family is ruined. Who's next? Some of them packed up their things and left the village. Others figured out how to strengthen the windows. Well, I and a few other men decided that the creature should be captured and destroyed. Otherwise, it is impossible. I managed to injure her, so I can kill her, but not alone. We assembled a group of 12 people. There were only 5 guns for all of them. Others supplied more than they had to. One brought a machete, another came with a sharpened shovel, the third with a fire crowbar. We decided that it was better to go into the forest before dark. That was the plan. Don't get excited, find a lair, and kill her. I lived in the company of 11 strong men with a gun on my shoulder, and it's still scary. We knew exactly which territory to comb. The creature always ran out of the same patch of forest at the edge of the field. I didn't usually wander around in those places. It seemed to me that the place was somehow dead. It's all jungle, ravines, fallen rotten trees. The animals didn't like to go there, and even the birds were always silent. They probably knew that this was the lair of a terrible predator. So we climbed into these impassable places, made our way through a windfall. The men were swearing, discussing in a low voice what they would do when they caught the creature. "We'll put a rope around your neck and hang it on an oak tree," said one. "Let the birds peck. There will be nothing to hang," said the man with the machete. "I'll chop it into cabbage." I didn't like this overconfidence. They should have seen what they had to deal with first. While I was in the hospital, I fucking dreamed about that huge, toothy mouth every night. Some men were in too much of a hurry. They climbed forward. They couldn't wait to find something. The guys agreed not to disperse, I reminded him, but who was listening to me? There was a shadow in that part of the forest. The weather seems sunny, but it's like an enchanted place. Everywhere you look, it's dark. The dense crowns of the trees hum overhead like a solid ceiling, and the rays barely penetrated through them. Suddenly, someone yelled ahead. We all looked at each other and climbed forward. We made our way through the rotten trunks as fast as we could. I was a little behind the guys, but I was in as much of a hurry as I could. Those who were walking in front suddenly stopped and froze, as if on the edge of a precipice. One of the men was yelling, "What are you standing for? Help me out! Get me out of here!" I ran up to the guys and froze too. We were standing on the edge of a ravine filled with dead animal carcasses. A whole swamp of rotting flesh and bones. Flies swarmed over the corpses in clouds. And what a stink there was. It seemed like she could be poisoned to death. And among this rotten stuff, our guy was floundering with a crowbar. He was too hasty, so he fell into a hole. They helped him out. He was covered in pus and blood. Go home and wash up. Otherwise, you'll catch some kind of infection, I advised. "I'm sorry, guys," he said. So one fighter dropped out of our group. The man left, and we remained standing on the edge of the ravine. It was immediately clear whose work it was. The tripod has been brutalizing here for a long time. This ravine was a place for waste. Half-eaten deer carcasses, rotting, pig snout, goat skulls, and human bones were scattered there. I noticed them at the same time as the other guys. We gasped when we saw the white chest and the head with the face completely stripped off. "That's scum," the man with the gun said softly. Another added, "We won't be back until we kill the creatures from the forest." Everyone was angry. Everyone wanted revenge. We walked around the ravine and moved on. I looked around and thought, Where could the infernal tripod be hiding? Maybe she has a hole? Or maybe she's sitting in trees? I don't think she's going to let herself be killed that easily. It's not going to be easy. Me and the other men with guns were walking in front now, and the guys with melee weapons had our backs. And again, a windfall underfoot. The ground squelched like wet rags. There were dead trees all around, without a single leaf. A gray cloud hung over us. Suddenly, a sharp cry came from behind. One of our men was captured. The creature attacked from behind and dragged the man away, grabbing his neck with its teeth. Soon, he was no longer screaming, but wheezing, choking on blood. The creature tried to escape, but its burden was too great. "Shoot!" one of the guys shouted. We understood that the one who was captured was no longer a tenant, so we started firing from all barrels. The forest turned away from the thunder. Bullets pierced the skinny gray body of the infernal creature. She howled. She abandoned the half-decapitated body and tried to leave, but we quickly reloaded our guns and rushed to catch up. I ran close enough to take aim. The creature jerked its head up, and my bullet pierced the back of its head. The other men pulled themselves up and started hurting, riddling her whole body. Not even a drop of blood flew out of her. The tripod was lying on the ground, kicking its legs, scratching the ground with its hand, as if it still hoped to leave. A man ran up with a machete and hit her on the head with a heavy blade. The creature froze. We couldn't take our eyes off the disfigured body for a long time. There was something unreal in front of us. Some kind of undead creature that came from nowhere. I sat down and touched the skin. It felt as hard as a rock. I was burning with cold. "Let's pull the village away," said the man, taking the machete out of the creature's head. And then he looked at the blade in surprise. It was completely clean. This thing was also heavy. We tied a rope around her neck and dragged her for an hour. Then, finally, we realized that we couldn't do it on our own. There were too many fallen trees in that part of the forest. And just as we were about to call for help, the rope slipped out of our hands. The tripod came to life again, and like lightning it flew off, somewhere into the thicket. We underestimated the survivability of the bloodless undead. After the incident, a special squad was finally sent to our village. The soldiers combed the forest, but found no one. They only took out the corpse of our peasant, and also returned human remains from the grave pit. All photos and recordings were forced to be deleted from the phones. They said that everything should be kept secret until the end of the investigation. It's been so long, and there's still no news. This creepy forest creature did not show up anymore. Life in the village gradually began to resemble normal life. But every house remembers what happened here. Some people even installed shutters and blinds on the window. They are locked at night, as in bunkers. And I haven't gone hunting since. We are all afraid that the tripod will one day come out of the forest again.